My presentation here today is just lifting heavy for longevity. So when I talk about lifting heavy, I want to explain that I'm not trying to lift 1,000 pounds or anything like that for one rep. I'm just trying to lift something heavy for 5 reps or less, and it's really uncomfortable. But I do believe it's a process of how we progress through longevity and being able to do things we love to do. So to tell you a little bit about myself, I went to Capital University to get my bachelor's in exercise science. After that, I went to get my master's in sports performance from Rocky Mountain University. And ever since getting my education, I've been a strength coach at the high school level. A couple of my former college athletes that I coached are here today at Capital. But also I've done personal training and online coaching for general population, military personnel, firefighters, police, professional athletes, and everything of that nature. And then to my current role, I'm a tactical strength conditioning coach. So right now I'm a strength coach for Upper Arlington Fire Department. So that's been kind of a unique scenario because a lot of strength coaches and personal trainers, they deal with people from anywhere from 2 to 5 years where you just work them out and then it's on to the next phase. Well, I have guys that are as young as 18 years old all the way to 60 or retiring, and they'll be doing this career for 25 years or more. So my job is to keep them healthy enough to do their job well and perform at a high level while they're anywhere from 18 to 60 years old, which that's quite a challenge. And that's why I like to just lift heavy for longevity rather than just performance overall. So there's a lot of benefits health-wise and whatnot to lifting heavy weights. You can see on the left here, but what I want to focus on is that chart on the right. So you'll see as we age, so between the years, younger years of your 20s and 30s, your muscle mass and strength is at its highest. And as you see towards the adult life, where I would say is late 30s to 50s, you start seeing a slight decline. So there's 2 lines there. So the top line is the people that constantly push themselves physically, activity, whether that's weights or running or whatever. And then the second line is if you're doing the very minimum or very sedentary. And as you can see, there's a large drop off. So in my mind, lifting heavy weights allows you to be more independent and do the things you love to do longer in life. So on the second line, when you get into that bar that says disability threshold, that's more or less where people are having trouble getting out of a chair without using their hands. They fall to the ground, they can't get back up, and just essentially have to go into assisted living or things of that nature where they have to move in with their family, and just it causes a situation that nobody wants to be in. So my 3 focuses for longevity are being able to move, minimizing wear and tear on the joints, and establishing consistent and sustainable training habits. So you'll see here, this is my man Marcus. He's a former Ohio State football player. He's a physical therapist, the head of integrative medicine at Ohio State, but he's also a dad. So I've been training him online for the past 6 months, but recently within the past few months, I've convinced him to come in and train. So as you can see, he's doing a deadlift. It was pretty hard. You can see in his face, it wasn't easy to do. So that's what I mean by heavy lifting. So I like to use a lot of weird bars and bands and stuff because they allow you to lift heavier for longer and work around certain ailments. So being a former athlete and being a physical therapist now, it's like, why does he need to lift heavy? Well, in my mind, so the second video he sent me is his daughter. So let's say she's anywhere between 40 to 60 pounds, and he just essentially did a single leg good morning with 40 to 60 pounds on his back. Now, I'm sure most of you realize he probably didn't warm up or anything to do this movement. So he's just doing it spare of the moment, enjoying time with his child. So in my mind, lifting heavy, so he's got over 200 pounds on that bar with the band and the weights on there. So being able to lift that versus having a 40 to 60 pound kid on his back makes that easy. It makes it cake. So when I say be able to move, there are 6 categories of movement, which are your squat, hip hinge, lunge, push, pull, and loaded carry. You need to be able to do all these motions of movement or planes of movement in order to be a functional human being. Now, I'm not saying squat with 500 pounds on your back. I'm just saying get down into a squat, whether that's a goblet squat, barbell squat, box squat, any type of squatting movement. So as we get older, we need to be able to make sure we can do those efficiently and with a load. So on the right, the right there is my man Scott that I've been training since 2018. So he's 52 years old and just hit a lifetime PR of 430 pounds on the deadlift. So I don't know about you, but I think he's going to be able to handle anything life throws at him because he's fairly strong, especially at his age and weight size. Now, when we're being able to move, these movements should be strong through the full range of motion. And if they aren't, we need to work on it. Now, they also need to be pain-free. Now, if you do have pain, that doesn't mean avoid the movement altogether. That means find an alternative. So Bree does a great job of this. Where is she at? She has one client that can't grab a barbell because of the shoulder issue. So she uses a safety squat bar as a way to modify the movement rather than missing it altogether. So, and then there's pain versus injury. So pain is something it's uncomfortable, but we can work through that. Injury is something, it's so debilitating, we need to access a physical therapist, a doctor, or something to figure out what's going on and figure out how to move from there. So this is was one of my clients, Monique here. She's 58 years old. She originally came to me with shoulder pain, but I found out she also had trouble picking things up off the ground without having pain. So as you can see, I'm doing a variation of movements to come from the top to be able to get to the point where she can pick things up off the ground pain-free. So it's not pictured here, but we worked up to being able to pick up 135 pounds off the ground at 58 years old. Now, even though that's not a lot of weight, realistically, so kind of going to another point, my mom had a friend that was picking up a case of water off the ground, which if you've picked that up before, that's anywhere between 40 and 60 pounds. She picked it up and hurt her shoulder because she's not used to doing that. Water is not only heavy, but it's very awkward because of the size of it and the water swishing back and forth. So realistically, she got hurt because she wasn't strong enough to do that. Now, if you have a high baseline of strength, something sub-maximal, such as 40 to 60 pounds, is not going to be an issue. And then another point is just minimizing wear and tear on the joints. So Drew and Dale have done a great job of picking out different pieces of equipment that help us minimize the wear and tear on our joints. So compression versus traction. So whenever we do a barbell squat or a deadlift, there's a lot of compressive forces on the spine. So what we need to do to combat that is do very traction-based exercises like the 45-degree back extension and the reverse hyper to kind of offset some of that, or you're going to compress your spine to the point where you get hurt. And then so everything we do in our normal day-to-day living is typically in front of us, like sitting at a desk or grabbing something off a table. So that's why we want to pull 2 to 3 times as much as we push throughout the week when we train. So that way you're having better posture in your shoulders and really keeping the joints nice and healthy. And then the third point here is just focusing on your specific needs. So if you're a construction worker, I'm not going to put a lot of different things on you because you're already worn out for your job. I want to do things that you need specific to your longevity. So here's 3 different videos here. So going back to minimizing wear and tear on the joints. So we got a chest supported dumbbell row and a T-bar row. So instead of doing your traditional bent over barbell row where there's a lot axial loading or pressure on the low back, I'm going to use those 2 different movements in order to attack the lats in the same nature, but it doesn't put near the load on my spine. So with the chest supported row, all the load is going on the bench. With the T-bar row, it's all going to that that hinge point on the machine. And then just another piece of equipment, the reverse hyper there, it just provides that traction in the spine without those compressive forces and helps you strengthen your glutes and your hamstrings and all that good stuff. And then now that we're training a lot smarter, we need to find ways to make it more sustainable and consistent. So if you, consistency is always greater than intensity. So if you can do something over and over and over again, you're just going to slowly build up something over time, rather than going intense one time and just never really building anything. Now, it's always about what you can do rather than what you recover, or sorry, it's always about what you can do versus what you can recover from. So I can go balls to the wall working out all the time, but I'm not going to recover from it. So even though I just maxed out recently at about 530 squat, realistically, I only go over 400, maybe 1/3 of the year, but I can still hit that potential at any point of the year if I really had to. Now, and then as you see on the right-hand side there, so that's a chart of super compensation. So whenever I hear about super compensating, I picture a short dude driving an oversized truck all the time trying to compensate for something. But in this case, we're really talking about just how your body adapts to stress over time. So whenever you do a workout, you'll see the baseline there. There's fatigue going downward. So that's the fatigue from your training sessions. But if you keep consistent enough, you come above that baseline again, and that's where you need to deload in order to not over ramp your system, to like essentially take an easy week, to not overload your system, and then start training again to just suddenly make progress over time. So when I'm talking about sustainability and consistent training habits, I think about my client Jessie. So she's a good friend of mine. I've known her for quite a few years, but I saw this post on her Facebook back in 21 talking about how she was having low back pain. So it was so debilitating to the point she had to quit her job and couldn't do the thing she loves, which is training dogs. So she worked at a kennel, worked with a lot of dogs, and could not train them anymore because of her debilitating back pain. So she was going through physical therapy and was getting extremely frustrated because it did not prepare her. So it got her to normal, but it didn't get her back to doing the things she loves to do. So that's where she posted this, and I got in contact with her. So this video was taken earlier this year. As you can see, her back pain's doing quite a bit better now. She's able to pick things up off the ground pain-free, and it just took time. So it's 2023. Close to 2 years later, she's picking things up off the ground. Now, the longer it takes you to build that, the longer it's going to stick with you. So that's why it's important to build that consistency, because even if she takes a couple weeks off now, she's going to be okay, but she has to come back and continue training. So the reason I like using a lot of bands and chains and different bars of that nature, so especially dealing with people with pain at the low back, on the deadlift, that's where you're most susceptible to an injury. So as you come up, the chains load more weight as she gets to the top, where the position's more stable and she can handle a lot of those different forces. So I just wanted to point that out because I know the chains look weird from time to time, just look badass. But the idea is there's a specific reason to them. So at the end of the day, all of this is just gearing us towards doing things we love to do. And because Drew put it in there, my name is Ted. So thank you for listening to this talk today. And if you have any questions about anything, please visit the website, agogeperformance.com, or just chat me up afterwards. Thank you.